Hi everybody, welcome to the Applied Information Show. Today we've got a really exciting session. Today we're going to be talking about Hawaii's connected vehicle landscape, and we've actually got the Deputy Director of the DOT, Ed Sniffen, on board today. So we want to welcome Ed onto the show, and I'm just going to talk about what we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to go switch over to Alana, who's going to talk about some housekeeping. So today we're going to have a 60-minute session. Our key speaker is the DOT Director, Ed Sniffen. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn about the Hawaii transportation systems, what they've got over there, and their whole connected vehicle plan. So before I go over that and go into what we're going to be talking about, I want to hand it over to Alana, who's going to talk about some of the housekeeping, what you should be doing and thinking about.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Alana Stander, and I am our sales manager for the West region. For the best experience today, you would want to click in your upper right-hand corner. There's a button, Speaker View. If you select that, you will have the best experience today. We also have the YouTube live stream link in the chat box if you'd like to view it live on YouTube. And we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. There's a Q&A button on your screen as well. And if you can pop in as many questions as you like over there, as we do have leading experts here today with us, Goldwings, Applied Information, and then of course, the Deputy Director of Hawaii DOT. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks so much, Alana. So what I wanted to do was just actually introduce Ed Sniffen. And Ed has been serving as the Deputy Director of the Highways for more than 5 years, overseeing the improvements and maintenance of about 2,500 lane miles of highway, 740 bridges, and across six different islands. His mission is the development and improvement of highway transportation systems and people to facilitate the sustainable, safe, and efficient travel and commerce statewide. As the newly appointed chair of AASHTO's Committee on Transportation System Security and Resilience, Ed is trying to catch up with all the great work the committee and its former chairs have done, then to improve how all the states include resiliency into their plans. So I want to welcome Ed Sniffen to the show, and I wanted to actually start off with just a question to Ed of, so who is Ed Sniffen? Give us a bit of background into, what you've been doing, some of the exciting things, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I would love to know one day. I'm still growing up into this whole position. Thanks very much, Peter, for having me on. I really appreciate being invited to this and to talk about the Hawaii system that we have. For me, I'm a product of Hawaii. I was born and raised here, went up to school in the mainland in California, came back home and said I'd never leave. And then, of course, I left because my wife asked me to. We went to Oregon for 5 years, came back with a lot more information, a lot more breadth of what the world really looks like. And wanted to make sure I jumped into the public sector to try and see how we can improve things for Hawaii. Always looking at opportunities to make Hawaii's, our cost of living, our quality of life for all of our communities better in different ways. As everybody knows, because we're an island state, we're limited in resources. So we got to bring in new resources, new technologies, new thought processes to ensure that we can build things better for Hawaii.
That's absolutely great. Thanks so much. One other person that I wanted to introduce as well is Keoni Wasano. And he's from, and I brutalized your surname there. I'm sorry, Keoni. But Keoni's from Goldwings, who's one of the local suppliers of applied information technology on the islands, and wanted to introduce Keoni. So welcome to the show, Keoni. And Keoni, could you give us a little bit of background in, to what Goldwings does on the islands and your story as well, because you also left the mainland. You also left to go to the mainland and came back as well. The drive of island life obviously called you back.
Yeah, so Keoni Wasano, just for future reference, Peter. But I actually started off my career at the DOT working with Ed right out of college for a few years. And then, like Ed, my wife really wanted to go to the mainland and gain some other experiences. So I spent the last 10 years with Econolite up in California out of their Anaheim office, and heard of a company called Goldwings who was doing new innovative technology within Hawaii. So Goldwings actually connected with Applied Information in 2016 and started bringing in some of their preemption connected vehicle devices, along with some of Carmana's RFBs and school zone beacons a little bit before that as well. So when I was looking to come back to Hawaii to make a difference, it was a nice fit for what they were trying to do with my experience that I had gained up in the mainland. And it was perfect just to be able to come back and make a difference where I had was born and raised.
Yeah, and it's absolutely great having you back on the islands. I know that, you know, getting that knowledge that you've learned, you know, back on the islands as well has been hugely successful for us as well, of having a partner and someone that knows all the traffic systems the way you do. What I wanted to do is ask Ed a question, which is, you know, and most people don't understand this, you know, on what are some of the, you know, issues that you've got to deal, you know, from an island's perspective. You know, it's totally different running a system on multiple different islands. What are some of those issues that you deal with that's totally different to everybody else?
So definitely, connectivity is one. Knowing that we have geographical dislocation between the parts of our state makes it challenging. But it's not a unique challenge. There's other states that deal with these same types of issues. For us, the big thing is culture. In our 6 different islands that we serve, there's 6 different cultures, 6 different needs, and we want to make sure that all the solutions that we push into different areas are both impactful positively to the quality of life, but also respectful of the way people want to live. So we want to make sure that we run our solutions through the communities to adjust it as much as possible to fit their quality of life. I mean, being really respectful of their way of living. And even though we're not very far apart between the islands, in some cases, we're very far apart in the way we want to live. So that's the biggest challenge. Now, the physical separation is also a challenge, making sure that we have connectivity throughout, making sure we have consistency throughout. As you all know, when there's different local districts, there's different ways of people running their own governments, their own sectors. We want to make sure that as we be respectful of how they want to run it, we're still consistent in the way we operate.
How do you go about actually getting all those different communities together? I mean, that's actually a very difficult thing. We deal with it a lot, you know, trying to get a fire department to talk with the traffic department. But that's a different problem that you're talking about. What's the best way of actually bringing all those parties together?
So significant amounts of communication, making sure that we're all connected from the beginning, and making sure that we're working towards the same end. We're not going to come up with the same solutions. We're not going to come up with the same thought processes, but we can all agree to the direction that we're going to go to. In the end, we want to make sure that from the beginning, we focused on and we prioritized the people and the communication. If we just prioritize the project, we will come up with something wrong. If we prioritize the people and how we service them, how they want to live in the end, we'll come up with something really good.
That's absolutely great. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, you know, the Hawaii DOT's vision. You know, what do you see, you know, your current vision, where you are right now, and where you wanting to go? You know, do you guys have a set vision on that, and what's your vision on how to get there as well?
Yeah, so that's a multifaceted answer to that question. The way I see Hawaii right now, we're behind. From a technological perspective, from an economical perspective, we're behind the other states. We want to make sure that we're competitive in everything we do. So we're trying to move Hawaii forward in many different ways, but using the transportation platform to do it. When we look at our transportation system, we don't just see roads and bridges. We see connectivity between our communities, the communities that we love. We want to make sure that we bring up those communities as much as possible through our system. So the better service that we can provide, the more dependable it is, of course, the better it is for quality of life throughout. But we can also use this platform to ensure we bring in other things that we want for our communities. We know that we cannot live on tourism and military alone. We've been doing that for the last 20 years, and we've been talking about how to adjust our economies to ensure that we provide more opportunities for our public. We haven't done it. So we're using the transportation platform now to see how we can build up the technological base to build another industry in Hawaii. Now, I can't do it alone, but at least we can start having the conversations about how we do it here, providing more opportunities for technology to grow here. And hopefully, providing more opportunities for people to grow in technology here to start pushing it forward nationwide. The hope and the goal is to make sure that we have the best transportation system in the nation from an ITS perspective. And also that potential new industry built up here so we can be leaders in things rather than trailers.
That's a great answer. One of the things I see as a major benefit for Hawaii is because you guys have got a closed ecosystem there where it's only Hawaii, and there's a lot of we do a lot of work with the auto manufacturers, and they are reaching out, really wanting to find a place where they can actually go out and test all of these. They're bringing out all these cars coming up in 2022, and that's a great way of actually bringing in industry to Hawaii. Is by putting in this infrastructure, you're definitely going to get a pool of people coming in there. So I think that's an absolutely great plan that you've got there, Ed.
You bring up a really good point, and that's the thing. So we can start setting the base, but there's other reasons that people will want to come to Hawaii. Definitely, the infrastructure has to be there. Definitely, the thought process has to be there. Then we, the state, have to be really good partners for industry to come in. So we're working towards that right now.
That's great. And I've got all sorts of questions on some of the current projects that we involved with you. But what I wanted to talk about before that is, you guys are doing so many exciting projects. What are some of the current exciting projects, excluding the Nimitz corridor, because we'll get there, but some of the other exciting projects that are going on with the DOT?
So for us, one of the things that we realize that the state has significant advantage of, and this is any state. If you look at any organization that's fit to innovate, that's fit to take the risk of innovation, it's a state agency. We don't have to worry about trying to bring in more income. We don't have to worry about paying off debtors. We know that we have a fixed income coming in. We just got to make sure we prioritize what we want to innovate and how and justify how it's going to improve things for the public. So we've been working with that innovation space, with accelerators throughout our state, trying to see what products we can bring in, we can test, and hopefully put out to the public for consumption through our program that fit several goals. Definitely from a transportation perspective, we want to make sure that we're efficient, we're dependable. But we also have goals on the environmental side. For Hawaii, our state legislature and our governor agreed to a 2045 goal of 100% clean energy and reductions in emissions throughout. So we started looking at green technologies to see how we could minimize our carbon footprint while we're doing our construction and operations. We found a great product in green concrete and CO2 entrained concrete that allowed us not only to reduce CO2 by entraining it into the concrete during its production, but also it increased the strength of the concrete by threefold, which allowed us to decrease the amount of cement that we put into it, which is also another reduction in CO2 as we go forward. So overall, we've been able to reduce our CO2 consumption on any precast or cast-in-place concrete by a third. I mean, it's significant from an overall perspective when we start looking at the construction we put in. We put those specs together to ensure that we directed everybody in DOT that you shall use this concrete from now on to ensure we reduce our carbon emissions. It helped out because all the other departments in the state who have infrastructure, who are constructing, adopted it as well. So now we just took that 1/3 reduction and we multiplied it by 8. So it's a significant change. Those are the types of technologies that we're looking for. We're looking at coating, asphalt coating or fixes to our pavement to ensure that we can not only keep our system in a high state of maintenance, but also do it very efficiently, very economically, to ensure that we don't have to put a lot of resources into it, and we don't impact the public tremendously every time we do it. So those are kind of the pushes that we have throughout our system.
That's really exciting. I mean, it's super fascinating hearing you speak about some of those things because, we're in the technology space and we don't, that is a technology breakthrough in the asphalt side of it, which is actually, applying great changes for you guys. So,
for us, one of the biggest, the biggest things that we're really happy or really proud of, we know that in this technological space, the reason that companies want to come to different states is because we have the product that they're looking for. So we're trying to see how we build up our students in Hawaii too. All of our corridor projects now, from now on, whenever we push forward on corridor projects, we always tie into the local high schools in that area. They're the ones that help us with our GIS mapping. They help us with our community outreach. They help us with our project development, and then with inspection during construction. We want them to see how things move forward. We also tied into a local technology company that's helping out to build an artificial intelligence platform that the students are programming. So hopefully with the DOT's processes and infrastructure and resources, we're helping out the educational space right now to ensure that we start putting out the product that companies are looking for in the future.
Wow, it's exciting hearing about those kinds of things. So Ed, I wanted to ask you about, what was your interest and what led to you guys starting off with the Nimitz connected vehicle corridor project? What was the thought plan behind that, and how did you actually kick that off?
Well, informally, I'll say I sit next to Idaho and Georgia during our AASHTO meetings. And I love Russell. He's one of my favorite directors of all. I want to make sure I have something to talk about that he's not doing yet anytime I see him. So part of it is a competition. I mean, just the bottom line. I'm a competitive person. I want to make sure my state and everybody else is on par and we're competing. But more so, when we start looking at the future of transportation, especially on an island state, especially when we know we're landlocked, we don't have the resources that everybody else may have, we got to look at other alternatives right now. So we look at our system and we know that we haven't pushed a lot of ITS technology into it. We know that our system is not dependable from an overall perspective when we consider what can be done. And we know that it's not efficient when you look at it from an overall perspective. So we're trying to do now what we can to ensure that the public can see there's other ways for us to take care of your congestion needs. We don't have to build another lane. We don't have to build a flyover. We don't have to spend $200 million just to get you another 5 miles, 5 minutes faster. We want to show the public that we can do things very efficiently through our signal corridors to ensure that we can improve their quality of life right away. And I want to make sure that they understand we can keep adjusting to their needs as we go forward. We know the needs that we had a year ago are not going to be the same 2 months from now because of the COVID situation and other disruptors that are going to come through the industry as we go forward. We want to make sure we have a system that's smart enough to adjust to the needs now and smart enough to let us know what those needs are consistently as we go forward. That's the intent for this project on Nimitz. That's the intent for extending this project to all state signals and then county signals from there.
Well, that's fascinating. And it's also fascinating seeing how all the states compete with each other, which is all part of the game. I've got a question. Yeah. Keoni, maybe you can talk us through some of the technology that's being deployed on the Nimitz corridor, just to explain to everybody, what actually was involved in that project as a whole, globally, not just, what you deployed there, but the whole project as a whole.
Yeah, so from the base level, we partnered up with the Econolite Control Products, and they are providing an ATC controller for all of the intersections with along Nimitz. And so we changed out the controllers, we changed out how it's doing detection. So rather than just doing loops in the ground, we're also doing video detection above ground. So getting more accurate data, even in terms of the amount of cars that are coming through. What we're also doing is installing applied information cabinet monitoring devices. So now we can monitor the temperature, the humidity, the analog and digital inputs within all of the cabinet pieces that are happening. So we can know what is happening at a cabinet level before it affects how traffic flows. So all of that is in the cabinet and monitoring things, and we're also introducing cellular modems into there, so that way we can actually get the data through a cellular connection, and thinking bigger picture, we can also get this type of system out to places on the island that don't currently have fiber run to, or have to spend all that money in order just to bring back what the intersections are doing. Secondly, what we also have is out at the intersections is on the mast arms, we're installing connected vehicle devices. So we have roadside units that are on the mast arms with some antennas, and those are bringing back both DSRC and CV2X data. So that way when the car manufacturers like Ford that you spoke of earlier start introducing those into their vehicles, we are ready as a state to be able to start handling all of that data and moving the cars along the corridor as well.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. I've got a couple of pictures over here that I was going to bring up and have you just talk about about the project as a whole. There's a picture over here for the corridor, just to show everybody what the extent is of that corridor. And Keoni, do you want to just talk about how it comes off the highway and where it goes to?
Yes, it comes right off of the freeway, and Nimitz Highway is a feeder right into downtown Honolulu. It's where we have some of the ports. It's where we have some schools and fire stations, and one of our largest malls is all along this corridor, and it takes you directly into Waikiki. So a lot of our tourists that are coming from the airport drive down this corridor. What you're seeing now is the 34 intersections that we have within our glance system. And all of those are all connected up to Centrax as well as Glance to be able to give the DOT all the information that they need.
And Ed, why did you pick the Nimitz corridor? What was the reason behind Nimitz as the corridor that you selected?
It was a perfect case study. It's the perfect multimodal piece. We have our ports in that area, so we have a high degree of our commerce traffic in that area. We have our shopping centers in that area, so there's a lot of people coming in, our visitors coming through to traffic that area. It connects right up to downtown, so we have a lot of our residents who live outside of town coming into to Nimitz Highway to make sure they get into the town. We have a lot of our people, our tourists who come through when they get to the airport, use Nimitz to just get down to Waikiki. So there's a lot of different uses in that area. Coupled with, there's a lot of pedestrians, joggers, and bicyclists that are using that corridor for transportation and for recreational purposes. So I wanted a corridor that we needed to make sure that we could adjust very quickly on the demands. The demands, there is no real peak on Nimitz. If you look at Nimitz throughout the day and you look at it 5 days a week, there's different peaks throughout. So we wanted to make sure we had a signal system in that area that could be smart enough to adjust to the demands real time.
That's brilliant. And it sounds like it's really a multimodal corridor, which is really exciting. Now, you talked about some of the information there in terms of cyclists and pedestrians. How do you see this project, on the safety side? Because I know safety is your number one priority there. How does this fit into the safety aspects of what you guys are trying to achieve?
So for us, anytime we hit a corridor, and after this signal project comes through, we're going to be reconstructing the pavement throughout this whole corridor. I wanted the signal system in place so we can really see the needs of the public. Then we can adjust the striping during the reconstruction to ensure we fulfill them. If we're seeing a higher degree or higher need for more spacing for cyclists, we're going to do that. If we need to upgrade our pedestrian facilities to ensure that we take care of all the pedestrians in that area, we're going to do that as well. For me, though, the big issue is we don't have enough information. We don't have enough information on the counts of how many people are using that corridor for bicycling, for walking, and the like. And I want to make sure I have a system in place that can help us track that. For us on that corridor, when we start looking at the multimodal use, the transit usage on that corridor is tremendous as well. So if I need to make sure that I put in more facilities to take care of that, because that's a huge amount of people who are using transit to get to work, then we've got to make sure we take care of that as well. So this was the need for this project. This was the need for us to consider, because what we find on this project and how we operate through this corridor is going to be what we're going to do to copy on all of our major corridors throughout the state.
That's brilliant. And as you said, this corridor's got some life-saving technology for, obviously the emergency vehicles as well as the transit to make transit faster.
Exactly. And the big thing for me, and anytime, we talk about this at Astro quite a bit, we have that 2020 challenge, right? We want to make sure that we have 20 connected signals by 2020. One of the big pushbacks I've always had on that consideration, although it's really good because we want to make sure we move the transportation industry forward, is if I put in connected signals for connected vehicles in Hawaii, I'd service all of 5 people. I want to make sure that I put in a system that services everybody that goes through that corridor. So one of the biggest considerations for me is everybody must be able to connect, whether you have a connected vehicle or not. And putting in a GLAN system allowed that. Without having that, without having us being able to connect up to vehicles, to pedestrians, to bicyclists, to anybody who has a cell phone, this project wouldn't be a success.
That's great. I think, we've got a whole bunch of questions that we prepared, but what I think would be a great idea, just as we're talking about all this technology and people actually don't understand it until you see it. And I know, Ed, that was one of the things that we had was we jumped in a car and we saw the technology working. And that's actually where you start going, wow, okay, this stuff is real. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a video here that Keoni is actually driving live in Honolulu. And Keoni, maybe you want to just talk about as we're driving along, where we are, what people are seeing.
Sure. So what you see here is the first intersection on the easternmost side of Moana Boulevard, the Nimitz corridor. And as you see, we're driving up to the intersection and you see a red light and it actually just turned green. You saw it actually change on the phone app at the same time as the light. The next piece that you're going to see is actually the next intersection, and we can see that the through lane is green, even though we can't see the intersection up ahead. So now that we're coming around the corner, we can see the lights, and we're just going to keep going. So from a driver perspective, we don't have to step on our brakes. We don't have to worry about the traffic ahead of us. The next intersection here, we actually have a red light, and there's an alert. So if the driver is going too fast and it thinks that we could possibly run a red light, it's going to give you that verbal warning. And so we're just going to wait through some of these cars and everything.
Yeah, and the left-hand side of the screen is obviously showing you exactly what the phone's showing you, just to make it a little bit bigger so that everybody can see what's being displayed clearly.
And what's going to happen next is going to give us a get ready for green. And that's just letting the driver know that the signal is about to turn green for them and they can get ready to advance on. So we've skipped ahead to the next intersection where you can see the get ready for green alert yet again.
Get ready for
green.
green.
And I apologize, this was a very cloudy day in Hawaii when we filmed it.
That doesn't happen very often, does it?
Not at all.
And one of the things that I did want to mention there, just as I pause it, was that obviously those messages, we're seeing the visual aspect of the phone, but everything's audible first. I want to make 100% clear that Travel Safely, 93% of all users of Travel Safely are using the app in the background. We don't promote distracted driving. Yes, someone can use the app if they want to as a visual indicator, but it's very much, most people are using Google, Waze, and this is audible alerts to warn you that you're going to run a red light or get you ready to go to green, because what we found is since smartphones have become synonymous in cars, people are texting, emailing, doing what they're doing, and the start-off time at traffic signals has reduced significantly. And this is going to give that audible warning that we're going to get more people quicker off the line. There's just a little bit more on this video that, what we did was I've got a couple of other alerts. This is around the corner. You can see the traffic signal changing.
Red light.
And there we're driving a little quick towards that signal, and it gave us a red light alarm. And we've got one more, get ready for green. But then what I'm going to do is just show you guys some of the other alerts. And one of these is some of the alerts that's been tied into the Big Island in Hawaii that's got connected school zones, connected vehicle-ready school zones on the Big Island. And these are some of the alerts that can come through. So as we're driving, and this is a great thing, you're in the rain here, you can't see the school beacons very clearly, and we're going to get alert coming.
Speeding in school zone.
The speeding in school zone, that's just to save the lives of the children when you're driving in an area that you just don't realize you're driving more than
Speeding in school
5
zone.
miles above the speed limit. One of the other aspects for this project is pedestrian collision alerts. And you'll see there the alert came through for the pedestrian that it thought we were going to hit the pedestrian and gave us an alert based on the way the pedestrian was walking.
High-speed vehicle caution.
And the pedestrian also gets his own alert that there's a high-speed vehicle coming. And this is to save the lives of the pedestrians as well as cyclists. You'll see here there's a cyclist ahead of the vehicle. And you're going to see the alerts that come in the vehicle. You'll see that cyclist ahead.
Cyclist.
And you get an alert that there's a cyclist ahead, that you provide a warning.
High-speed vehicle caution.
And the same alert gets provided to the cyclist. And before I jump onto work zone warnings, what's quite important is we've done a great study at University of Florida that have basically come out and said providing audible warnings in school zones is making people's eyes search the road for children and reducing their speed by 5 to 7 miles an hour. Huge benefit. And with the cyclists, they also did the study and they showed that when a person gets a warning that a cyclist is ahead, their eyes track onto the cyclist and move over. So there's been some great studies that have been done that are showing that this technology really is life-saving technology. And what's great is, having someone like Ed, who's right behind all this technology and promoting that technology, because when you can do it on scale and you can get a number of people on board, that's when the magic really starts to happen, because now we can connect pedestrians, vehicles, cyclists, emergency vehicles, and get the community connected. And Ed, I wanted to actually just hand it over to you, because I mean, that was one of your visions that you spoke about to me, and I thought that was a great way of how do you connect not just someone who owns a $50,000 vehicle, but everyone in the community.
Absolutely. So the big push was to make sure that we push equity. We want to make sure that everybody has this life-saving technology in their hands or on their dashboard, for that matter, to make sure that everybody can benefit from the improvements that the state is putting out there. For me, I'd much rather roll everything out statewide to incentivize everyone to have this application on, no matter where you go. And of course, we got to scale it. So we started off with the Nimitz pilot, made sure it's a success, made sure that we work through any issues that we might have. The next step is to push it statewide on all state signals. We only have 500 state signals statewide. We only have another 700 that are run by the county. So in reality, the 1,200 signals can be operational with this technology on it in a very short time frame. Like you said, Peter, we're a great petri dish to test things out. We know what kind of stressors are coming into the system, and we know what kind of operational changes we can make from it. This application makes it a lot easier for us to get that information and make the adjustments very, very quickly.
And Ed, one of the things that we spoke about as well was how pedestrian and cyclists, across the whole of the US, deaths have been increasing, and people call it vulnerable road users. But the deaths have been increasing for that, and it's not an easy problem to solve. And I'm not saying at all that this technology is the be-all and end-all to solve all of those accidents. But that was one of your visions, that you said you wanted to get all of these pedestrians and cyclists connected for the safety side.
Absolutely. So to me, awareness is everything. Awareness for the drivers, pedestrians, the bicyclists, everybody, all the users of the system, that's what saves lives. This technology helps them. It helps them be more aware of what's going on around them. I remember when we did the drive-through in Atlanta, I brought Malcolm with me, the former director of Caltrans, who is very inquisitive, Peter, as you recognize right away. He asked a bunch of questions throughout, and the biggest ones of which were, how do we connect everybody on the system? How do we make sure that everybody has this technology in their hands, and how do we make sure that they can use it to save lives? So running through the operations and seeing how everyone can be more aware of their surroundings through audible alerts to make sure that they can be aware, they can see what's around them through these alerts were tremendous.
Yeah, and I think that's exciting because, that's one of the things the car manufacturers are also looking for is how do we get all this information into the cars? How do we actually get connected to pedestrians and cyclists and the infrastructure? And you having this whole infrastructure for the car manufacturers is a massive, massive thing that they're looking for as an ecosystem that they can test with.
Exactly. So setting up that platform for everybody to test in is tremendous. That being said, I don't want to wait for that technology to end up in the cars. If the technology is available here, like it is right now, we're going to put it in now to make sure that not only the public can benefit from it now, it can impact them now, but it also prepares them for the future of what may be coming on the adjustments. So this is a perfect timing for it.
That's absolutely brilliant. And obviously, it's not just traffic signal corridors and things like that. I know we kind of jumped off the video, but the video also has something on work zone warnings for highway applications, and there's electronic sign annunciations that can be done in the future. Obviously with the work zones, that's also another key area of saving the, speeding in a work zone area and saving the lives of the workers on the side of the road. And this is one of these applications that Keoni was talking about, which is emergency vehicle preemption. And this is a key aspect behind the project that you guys are working on, Nimitz, is providing green lights for the emergency vehicles. And you'll see what's interesting with this is all the other vehicles are brought to a halt and the emergency vehicle gets a green light. And also this, as we saw when we were driving along the Nimitz corridor, there are lots of curves that you can't see the line of sight. So utilizing this new technology, utilizing cellular communication, makes all the difference that you can actually provide a green light, guaranteed green light for these emergency vehicles. And you'll see over here,
Emergency vehicle approaching from behind.
adding in to the whole, connected vehicle system that you can warn the pedestrians, the cyclists, the vehicles, that there's an emergency vehicle coming from behind because the cars are so well insulated now that it's, it really is becoming, something that we can really provide additional information to all these people. Ed, you spoke about, the emergency vehicles and how it's one of the priorities because you said putting in a corridor like this, we don't want to just put in a corridor just for, showing people information, but you also want to apply it to emergency vehicles and transit vehicles. How do you go about getting those other communities involved, in other words, the fire department and so on, into a project like this?
So the great thing is everybody generally has the same vision for the future. I talked about communication being the most important thing for any of our projects to push them forward. All of our state agencies and our county agencies understand that communication piece is super important for us to operate day to day. And right now it's that communication not only between departments, but also between systems. So the end goal for all of this is to make sure that all of our systems are tied together. I would love for a person to be driving from their house one day, punch in their destination, not only see what their travel time throughout this corridor is, what kind of SPAT information they can provide, but also what parking space is available for them at the end of their destination, to make sure that all of our technologies are tied through. So because of that, our emergency responders are very intuitive in making sure that they're looking at how they tie into us better. When we brought this to our county agencies who run our emergency operations, they were absolutely happy to look at how they can tie in better, how they can use the system better than the existing Opticon systems that are just kind of line of sight, how we can make sure we can green a corridor for them, the straight throughs and the lefts, to make sure that no traffic is in their way when they're getting to their destination. They're absolutely happy to try and see what the test would look like to see how much time they can cut off on their emergency responses, because that speaks directly to resourcing. How many fire stations I need, how many ambulances I need in different areas, so we can start taking care of that resourcing, not just through adding another ambulance or another fire truck or another fire station, but improving the system itself. They're really happy to look at this now.
Yeah, and I think, traffic isn't going anywhere. Traffic is a big thing that stops these emergency vehicles. So having something that shaves off time all the time and moves the traffic ahead of them is really going to improve the response times. Do you want Ed or Keoni? I don't know who's the best person to answer this, but when you do preemption, how does that actually reduce the response times for these emergency vehicles?
So when we do preemption, one of the issues that we have on Nimitz is just the amount of traffic that's going through there. And so even if we were to get a green light at one intersection, the next issue is the next intersection down. So making sure that all of the signals are connected and working in a cohesive manner where we can start getting the green lights as the trucks are coming into it. And it can be green as soon as the truck gets there, to make sure that the vehicles in front of them are cleared out, to make sure that everyone else around them is stopped, and then getting the fire trucks to the scene a little bit quicker.
Keoni, I got another question for you, which is actually on, obviously there's some, we talked a little bit about the connected vehicle technology on the Big Island. What is it that's actually deployed there, and how does it actually work?
On the Big Island, we have the school zone beacons and some of the crosswalk stuff that's going out. They do have a few of the intersections that are connected as well. What we're doing there is, props to the county and the DOT there and working together. But all of their school systems are connected together. And so they're able to make changes to the school year systems and making sure that that's accurate and safe. So one of the biggest things there is if the lights are flashing when there isn't school, then the people that are driving aren't going to pay attention to it. It's not a real indication of what is going on. So with everything through COVID, through summer breaks and everything, they have been adjusting all of the signals through all of the school systems very quickly. In the past, they've had to drive out to each one, and it was a multi-day process, to get from one side of the island to the other. But now with the glance technology, they're able to make these adjustments quickly. And through COVID, we're able to turn off all of the school zone beacons once the schools did shut down.
That's absolutely amazing. So there's a lot of, in other words, the technology isn't just on one single island. It's actually moved over to multiple different islands. Are there any other islands that have been doing any kind of work there, with this connected vehicle technology, Keoni?
Yes, Kauai is looking at glance as well. Hopefully, their trial is going to go well, and we can move it forward. I know that everybody on all of the islands are really looking at Nimitz to see the kind of data that we're going to get out of it, as well as just the reliability and what they can do with the data now going forward on all of the other islands. Maui is doing a lot of good things. They have the ATC controllers in place already. And so their building blocks are already in place to be able to move forward.
And one of the things that's really important with the Nimitz project, Ed, is that you guys have involved the university there as well, which adds a whole nother dynamic. Can you talk about how your partnership with the university and how that's working?
Absolutely. Through any pilot, we want to make sure that we have the metrics to show that it was successful. Having the university on board, not only to take the data in, to process it, and then to show the improvements that we got throughout the corridor will be tremendous already. But the improvement is we're getting 3 of the grad students involved and 3 of the undergrad students involved to ensure that they can be in part of the project, hopefully to come to work for DOT afterwards, but also to make sure we push forward on this technology in different areas. If they don't come to work for us, awesome. They're going to go to someplace else where they can push this technology forward. So the university piece is huge from the research perspective, making sure that we can start pushing out more grants to the federal government to ensure that we can get more money into the state. We just got a $6.5 million grant from federal highways or US DOT to make sure we push more of this technology forward. So everybody benefits when we get more people involved in the community. And the UH has been a significant partner, not only in research, but also in implementation.
That's absolutely great. I mean, it's really interesting when you bring multiple different groups together on these types of projects, which I think is absolutely important, especially for the research side, to see how is all this technology working. And then, as you said, as you get the grant money and the money to roll out this technology, it makes it a lot better. I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe Keoni. I've got a couple of pictures here just to show people what it looks like along the corridor, what some of the technology looks like when you deploy it. But before we go to that, I just want to say to the audience, please write down some questions. We've got about 15 minutes to go. We've got Ed, we've got on the call, and I really want to give them some great questions as well. So please ask lots of questions. So Keoni, I'm going to put up a couple of pictures here, and maybe you want to just talk over some of these pictures of what's what has actually gone into these traffic cabinets and what's actually deployed on the street.
First and foremost, sorry for the embarrassing picture. But I think that the main point to show here is that it really took a team and the cohesiveness of the people that are working on it to really make this happen and so quickly. We're able to install all of the devices in the cabinets within a few weeks. COVID definitely helped because there are less cars on the road, but just the great planning that we're able to get in and the coordination with the DOT and the city and county along the way really helped this. What you see in the cabinet there is the new Econolite Cobalt controller running the latest EOS software. So we connected that in. We actually pulled the timing that was on the previous controller, put it directly in, so that way the public wouldn't see any difference. And then the unit above it is the applied information unit that connects to all of the inputs and outputs within the cabinet. And we have 4 Ethernet switches, or Ethernet ports rather, on the back that connects the controller, the autoscope detection, the pucks, and as well as the cellular modem and 900 megahertz radio from the cabinet.
And then you also deployed some roadside units as well. But you did a lot of this during the night, and we've got some pictures of things getting deployed at night. Maybe you want to talk us through some of these pictures here.
We did. These were fun nights, and on complete transparency, I was not out there every night. So this was one of the nights that I did go out there. And we were at Cook Street and installing the autoscope cameras and the roadside units. The picture on the left shows one of the American Electric guys up in a bucket truck, and they are installing the autoscope camera and the DSRC and CV2X antennas. So you'll see these 2 black bars on the mast arms, and that's set up so that the vehicles can start communicating back to the infrastructure. On the right-hand side, you see them working on, or actually in the next picture as well, you're welcome to change the pictures. They're working on the roadside unit, and that's a little black cabinet that's a little bit lower, and that actually is the brains of the connected vehicle piece. And we've put it at that level so that way you don't have to get in a bucket truck again to make any adjustments. We aren't sure what the industry is going to look like in 5 to 10 years, what the technology is going to be and how it's going to differ. So we have extra space within the roadside units to be able to add more technology and add more chips to the connected vehicle infrastructure. And we want to make sure that that's easy to do from a maintenance perspective and from an installation perspective for this project as well.
Perfect, perfect. Alana, before I know we've still got some more questions that we've got, but I wanted to check, do we have any questions from the audience that you want to read out?
Yes, we actually do. I believe this is a question for Ed. How are you marketing travel safely to the whole group of islands?
So that's a really good question. We wanted to make sure we ran through the testing with a lot of our staff first to make sure that we could run through with a lot of different types of devices, a lot of different types of drivers to ensure that we can anticipate any questions that come through. Last thing we wanted to do was tell the public, hey, go out there and try it and let us know if you got problems. We want to tell them, we tried it, we worked these things out, and here's the issues that we've found, and here's the things that we can do to help you get a better or positive situation when you go through it. So the next step for us is to roll this out publicly, to let everybody know and highlight what a success this project, this corridor is, and how much more successful it can be for everyone in the state if everyone turns on their app. Once we start connecting to everybody who has a cell phone throughout this state, now the system becomes super powerful. And that's the way we're rolling it out to everybody. It's going to be a consistent public messaging throughout into different sectors.
Yeah, and I think what's also very important on that is, you know, you want to always roll out these things in a small scale because they're localized issues and things like that that you've got to look at, you've got to fix before you bring it out to the public. And also, you know, there's also a, you know, Hawaii's got a corridor at the moment, which is great. But, you know, from a public perspective, they drive along the corridor, and the first intersection, they leave the corridor, they go, why is it not working on here? So there's also that perception that, in other words, we found whenever we've done corridor projects with Travel Safely, you know, the public thinks it's great, but then they want more. You know, and that's always the case, and that, you know, that's how you'll get a certain number of people onto it. But then, you know, you're gonna hit a limit because people are also gonna go and say, well, it's not in my hometown. It's not in, you know, it doesn't make it right back to my house. So am I gonna run it all day long? So there's a lot of different dynamics that happen around these things. But I think what Ed's talking about doing and rolling it out for the internal users, and then a subset of the population that drives along that corridor is going to give them a great idea of kind of the information. Because one of the things you can also do then is get information of all the people traveling along your roadways and actually know travel times and things like that as well. So I think that's also an exciting aspect behind this.
Absolutely. And from there, we start giving out timeframes where we would outfit more and more of the state so everybody can see when it's coming to their hometown.
Alana, you got some more questions there?
Yes, I do. Now they're rolling in. Ed, what was the most surprising discovery that was pleasantly surprising regarding the AI deployment?
With the ease of it. Really, when we started talking about this project, is in a very short amount of time. We had ITE Western that was planned to be in Hawaii. When I started talking to, this was last year, when I started talking to the event coordinators and asking what they're going to be presenting throughout, they started talking about all the things we're going to do in Hawaii. That's not good enough. So we put this project together through UH to ensure that we had a plan to put this together in 5 months. That was the schedule for everyone. For 34 signals throughout the corridor, 700 detection areas, and a technology that didn't exist on the island. I gave them 5 months to do it. The eyepiece went in within 3 weeks. It was absolutely amazing at how quickly and how seamlessly that technology fit into the systems that we had. And our system hasn't been updated for a while. We had legacy controllers on the system that AI tied into very, very, very well. So I was really happy to see how easy it was. I was happy to see how easy these construction zone detection areas went in. So I love how seamless the installation is and how quickly we could start getting data from the system.
That's great. Alana?
Yeah, they're coming in by the boatload now. Ed, can you, hold on. What applications are supported by the RSUs? Are the RSUs DSRC or CV2X or both? Does Travel Safely connect to the RSUs?
That's way too technical for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably Keoni.
In the RSUs, we do have both DSRC and CV2X. And the way that Travel Safely does work is it connects to the full system in the same way. So they're going to get the same notifications that the vehicles will be getting through the connected vehicle antennas and that whole system itself.
Yeah,
for me, my direction for this project was I'm technology agnostic. I want to make sure that whatever we have going forward is going to work with whatever is coming into the future. So that was the direction for the project, and that's what the product did for us.
I think that's a great point, because basically what you're doing is you're not going with one horse. You're saying, all right, if car manufacturer A, B, or C does DSRC, CV2X, or cellular to network, don't worry about it. We're deploying everything.
Yes, exactly.
All right, I have another one. You guys can fight over this one. Do you think this approach of connected all may create information or messages overload on the users? How to declutter this information when it comes to decision making, And how do you prioritize the messages or info, example, pedestrian versus bicyclist in vicinity?
So from my perspective, I don't believe that we're putting out an information overload. Especially if you run the application in the background, it gives you those audible alerts to ensure that you can start being more aware of the situations around you. From my perspective, when we start talking to the community, they're craving that information right now. They don't want to leave their house unless they can plan out their routes. They want to make sure that that information is being provided to them throughout the corridors that they're driving. So we're giving them what they're asking for right now. And what we've been seeing, not only locally, but nationally, is the more information that's provided, the less accidents that people see throughout those corridors. So I think, just from my perspective, I think we're going about it the right route. That being said, if we do see that we start providing way too much information, we can always dial it back. We can always rework the technologies that we have to ensure that we're putting out the right amounts.
Awesome.
That's a great answer, Ed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I've got one more. Can you show or explain the 4 Ethernet ports connected to the cellular modem? I assume it's LTE CV2X.
Wow, that's too technical.
I was going to say that's a Peter question.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to answer that question. So yes, there are Ethernet ports at the back of the cabinet unit, and what they do is they provide cellular connectivity where you can run over the 4G LTE network and you can get connectivity. In Hawaii, that's part of the project. Those signals didn't have connectivity, they don't have fiber running to them, and it's so in other words, they're utilizing the connectivity to get connectivity to the traffic signal controller, but then at the same time, that's also pushing the information up the cellular network directly to the travel safely servers that all the smartphones connect up. So there's magical technology happening in the background. That's the way I like to talk about it, whether it's DSRC, CV2X radios, or connected vehicles over the smartphones. The whole idea behind it is to get more people connected, to provide a platform, because cars are going to come out in the future and we don't know what technology they're going to have on. You've got to get connected to all of them so that whether a car manufacturer A, B, or C, you connected. And I think that's one of the great things that I believe Hawaii's got, that vision of providing an agnostic system that everybody can get connected, and what Ed talked about, getting the community connected. And I think that's a great thing just to add in. We've only got about 2 minutes left, Ed, is maybe could you add in about how, Hawaii is all about the community and getting the community connected, and also just your last thoughts before we end the program.
So for me, the system, the AI system is allowing us to connect more of our infrastructure now. As you and Keoni had talked about, we don't have fiber to every place. I don't want to wait for it. Providing that platform that I can connect sooner rather than later to put cameras or other detection devices there to give more information to the community is tremendous. Not just at the signals. Not just at the construction zones. There are areas that we have potential landslides or rock falls that I want to make sure that we start giving more information out to the public. There's areas that flood a lot on a regular basis during high rain events. I want to make sure that we provide information there to the public as well. This platform gives us that opportunity to do so. And this is all about making sure we reconnect the communities to the system. Now, this, of course, is going to roll over into bigger and better things. When we start connecting everybody to our system, we're looking at trying to make sure that we start better servicing the underserved areas. We know that there's areas that have poor wireless connection. In order to push my platform out to these different areas, we got to improve that wireless connection in those areas, which will also improve the service that DOE has to their communities, which is also going to improve the service that our human resources, our human services departments have to those different areas. So again, it's all going back to the public, all going back to the community, all going back to the person. If we focus on them while we're developing this platform, this infrastructure that we do, we're going to have significant improvements beyond transportation for Hawaii.
Ed, that is a great thing to end on. In other words, how we all get connected to the community, and also bring back that there is a massive importance on bringing communities into traffic systems for the betterment of all. Ed and Keoni, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I want to thank everybody for joining. Please, if you've got any questions for any of us, send us an email, call us, talk to us, because we've got great people here that can really add and help to improve the safety for everybody. So thank you so much, Ed. Thank you so much, Keoni, for joining the show. And everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.